Up there
kept
for
it classy
as well.
Yeah,
He did. I was expecting it to maybe take a different turn, but a classy man. A classy man. The woes continue, though, for Epsilon, it seems. Outside of one map there, I mean, that last map was not pretty, Chance.
Oh yeah, that was awful. Like just on like Forest S&D, for example, they've been really bad all week, or the past week, excuse me. And one of the problems they have is they just completely give up control of a bomb site even after they get blooded. But it's so difficult to retake the sites that, like, even if you lose first blood, like, you just kind of have to fight. But they haven't really seemed to make any improvements overall, I would say, even with kind of the role swap. Now, granted, like on this map, for example, like they still look decent. Like Hockey plays like a monster on London Docks, but even here, they just like they couldn't bring it together.
Yeah, obviously started off well for UNILAD, drawing a lot of energy and positive vibes from that big win yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, like, the game was pretty close, but then at this point, you see UNILAD really turn it around. On the Epsilon side, I think if you want to highlight anyone, probably Hockey. He's been, you know, very solid on this London Dash hardpoint map. But again, you can tell, as soon as they got to about 50 points, UNILAD, then they turned it on. They use all their streaks, and they continue to really break a lot of setups with those. Again, when you have streaks, you use them the correct way, you're able to chain hills together. So a great performance by UNILAD.
Yeah, no, it's definitely worth pointing out. Epsilon found themselves in a pretty big hole and had a couple nice hills to try and turn things around. Like the second time around, they go from sandbags to tin. And I think Hockey basically found himself inside a tin with zero help from his team. They get wiped, but Hockey goes huge. He goes on a 4 streak, gets control of the time for his team, and earns some streaks. And you think maybe they can get back into the game. But outside of a few kind of clutch moments, clutch rotations, it was just UNILAD all the way.
It definitely was. Wuskin led the charge with a 1.39. Of course, UNILAD up 1-0 for a 250 to 194 victory. We then head over to Search and Destroy, and you're thinking, all right, well, you know, we've seen some good plays from Nathan and some of the other guys over at Epsilon. Maybe this is where they can tie things up. But Joe, just wasn't the case.
No, not at all. I mean, UNILAD just sort of ran away with this one. They kept it going. I think what was so impressive, you know, yesterday against FaZe was their Search and Destroy, and they don't stop here. Just great offensive and defensive rounds, especially on offense. They're switching it up. They're attacking that B bomb site that forces, you know, Epsilon to rotate, and then they attack A. That's exactly what you want to do. You heard Scrap say it, that they've made a ton of adjustments, and they seem to be working now.
And there's a pretty big round, I think it was actually this one, where UNILAD, they get first blood, but in the process, they still get full control of the A bomb site, and they get the plant, but they're working with the 3v4. But both bomb sites kind of have the effect that, like, once you're in control, even with the man disadvantage, unless the timings don't go your way, like, you're still in a pretty good spot. Now, it's worth pointing out, Epsilon did not play it great. They took a bunch of 1v1 gunfights, as Jack was pointing out, and they could have rearranged something better. Obviously, the man advantage, but still, if control of a bomb site is that important, Epsilon just needs to do a better job of staying stationary. Like, if they're going for the attack on B, even if that first guy dies, like, I think you just have to try and force it. You have to try and make a little bit of magic happen, because it was just so many rounds, like, someone either gets naded or gets picked, everyone backs out of the bomb site, then you have players on UNILAD that are just crawling around the top plat area, hanging around the U bomb site, and it's almost impossible to retake without some sort of miracle happening. And UNILAD, of course, to their credit, played it incredibly well, but Epsilon, they just nothing they've really stood out for on that map to kind of justify them playing it again.
Yeah, and I think if you talk about UNILAD, we talked about Scraps, we talked about Shawnee. One player we haven't talked much about has been Wuskin. You know, he was that solid AR that they needed, and he stepped up big time, especially in Game 1, and then you saw there in Game 2. He finished at 8-2. He's sort of been, you know, what we kind of call a rock for a team. You know, he's always consistent, and he's been that guy so far, but he is playing sort of that slower AR role, but he's been doing great so well.
Well, and then, of course, we move over to CTF Game 3. At this point, UNILAD 2-0 up in the series. We thought, all right, this is probably realistically where it ends, but Epsilon showed signs of life here in Game 3.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was obviously that first flag cap won them the game, but you get in a minute and a half, but then they had, like, the last 8.5 minutes of just incredibly solid, not even entirely, like, base defense play. Like, they were consistently pushed up, like, towards middle map, but they were always in complete control. I think UNILAD had one moment where they got the flag out, and they managed to get it all at 50 feet, and Vortex put himself in the right spot, made the big play, and I think Epsilon, again, just being able to get that first flag was just, it was the clutch for them.
And Joe, obviously we saw yesterday UNILAD versus FaZe in CTF, and UNILAD were basically pinned into their base for about 8 to 9 minutes.
Yep.
Is that something which you think a bigger picture here is something they need to work on?
I mean, it's obviously tough. Flag Tower is a little bit different because that opportunity to go across to your enemy's base is fast. It doesn't take long. The map is just so small. I think it was just great defense from Epsilon, but on Arda and Forest, yeah, I mean, they were playing very defensively, you know, considering that map. But for Flag Tower, it's just a little bit different. As soon as you get those kills, you're kind of sort of forced up. Even if you take like 5 steps, you're mid-map, right? Like, so it's a little bit different on Flag Tower, but you heard it there. Scrap said they're a bit uncomfortable on that. They've only played it a couple of times, so if you're playing that UNILAD team, maybe you do try and force that Flag Tower.
Definitely could be a good pick. Of course, UNILAD still 2-1 up. Then we head over to map 4, and this is where things really got a little out of hand, and it got ugly quick, Chance.
Yeah, no, that was it was awful to watch. It was probably the most dominating game we've had so far in Hardpoint. I think there was one where I think it was United got 50-point clubbed as well. I think we've seen 2 or 3 maps that were in this ballpark, but yeah, for St. Marie, it's just something that just shouldn't happen. I mean, obviously credit to UNILAD, like a bunch of players went off. It was Moose at the start, but Shawnee had streaks, Scraps had streaks. Luskins like just didn't have anything to do for like the first half of the map, but there's not much more you can really say about just such a dominating performance coming out from UNILAD.
Yeah, I think he said it, like St. Marie, this isn't a map you typically see this. The reason why, there's a lot of contest-heavy hills. We've seen teams been able to sort of break from the front, but yeah, 100-0 on parking, 36-0 on lookout. Really, what that just says to me is Epsilon, they might be rotating, but they're just losing that first set of gunfights, which then spawns them out. Like, that shouldn't happen. You shouldn't be able to connect Hill 3 and 4 that perfectly. Again, Epsilon just either not rotating there, or they're not getting the set up gunfights that they need to win.
A brutal game 4, and congratulations to UNILAD, though. 3-1 result. That's another big win for them. Epsilon woes, they're going to continue. Now, earlier on Twitter, obviously, you heard Jess mention, it is, of course, Valentine's Day. So, you know, congratulations to all you loved ones out there celebrating today. But we asked on Twitter earlier on to send us some Valentine's Day love, and these are actually some of the ones that we came up with, of course, using hashtag CWL PS4. If I were programmed with emotions, I would have them for you. My lovely
Crimbot.
That's adorable.
Crimbot one. Look at his face. Aw, here's one for I'm falling for you. Really, we're going for the I'm falling for you one with Clay.
Now, Clay defended himself here. You know, he was like, I've only fallen off the map once on land in this game. But, you know, a couple of years before.
Well, how?
Gibraltar. Yeah.
Come on.
Gibraltar, yeah. But
the final one. Let me fill the empty space in your life. But
I love that. The innuendo there is just unlimited potential.
Oh dear. Well, Clay, you think Clay defended himself?
yeah, he said he's only done it once this year. The year before, or the couple of years before, it was about once a match. So, but yeah, he definitely fell a lot.
To defend himself. But if you guys have any creative ones of your own, be sure to send them in to us using hashtag CWLPS4. We might feature them later on today's show, because we love seeing how creative you guys can get. And remember, hashtag CWLPS4. But here's a look at the day's schedule. Of course, first game in the books. Up next, Team Envious versus Splice.